What is going on, guys? Ultimate Deadpool here, back with the third and final part of Cyborg Spider-Man's uh, build or whatever video. So he looks a little bit different than he did last time. For one, his robotic eye is more prominent. We'll explain that in just a little bit. And then he also has a little bit more weathering and stuff all over his entire body, and he is currently holding Boba Fett's blaster rifle. At least I believe that's what that thing is called. And he's got a little bit more dirt and grime and battle damage and stuff all over him. Plus, he has some additional hands that actually have custom paintwork done to them as well. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get Spider-Man himself, just without any accessories, and we'll break him down from top to bottom. Okay, so now he's just standing straight up and down, or as straight up and down as he can. So for those of you who don't know or have not stayed with this particular little mini series, or whatever you want to call it, I got this guy at Walmart for like, I think he was $7 or so. So very inexpensive. And he was my stand-in Spider-Man before until I got the Thunder Toys Sam Raimi Spider-Man from Spider-Man 1. And I didn't want to... all I had done to it at that point was paint the web lines on his suit. And it looked terrible because, no joke, it was literally just black Sharpie in the molded crevices of the web lines. Drove me crazy. And I did not like it even when I had first done it. So, I don't like throwing things away because you never know when something is going to be useful. I'm not a hoarder, so for those of you who think, oh, he just keeps everything. No, I do know what to throw away. If it's something that can potentially be useful or turned into something else like this, I don't usually throw it away because you never know when something like that could just pop into your head and be like, oh, hey, you can do this with it or whatever. So that's what I did. I just kind of set him off to the side and we're like, okay, if I want to use him as the new test dummy, then great, so be it. But then I ended up using the body that I used to paint Ben 10, Ben 10's jacket as test dummy. And he's probably going to go through a whole bunch of abuse. But, so, this came out of the blue. I was literally in my bed thinking one night, which is dangerous. And I'm like, okay, I've got this Spider-Man. What do I do with him? I want to do something with it. That way it's not just sitting around collecting dust. So, what I decided to do was give him ratchet joints. Or give him joints that could move. Because beforehand, all he could do is his arms would go up and down and out, in and out. Same thing with the legs. They could go forward and outward. That was it. That was the only articulation he had. Oh, and his wrist could move. That was about it. And maybe his head had a little bit of articulation. That was it. Static piece. Cheap kid's toy. That's fine. So, what I did was... And that it wasn't originally supposed to be Cyborg Spider-Man. It just kind of evolved into that. So what I did is I literally just cut the legs off, cut the arms or the forearms off at the elbows, and took Lego ratchet joints and slammed them, cut them down, refined them, and put them in the biceps, forearms, knees, and thighs. So that way he could actually bend. He could actually move. He could do dynamic-ish poses. He wasn't perfect, but he was better than he was. He didn't look better than he was, but he was definitely better than he was. And so I'm like, okay, he's got joints, he can actually move a little bit. Okay, great. And then it hit me. Robot looking joints, Spider-Man, mesh the two together, Cyborg Spider-Man. I was already planning on getting the Hot Toys Cyborg Spider-Man at some point anyway, but for now, this is going to be my stand-in for that until I eventually get Cyborg Spider-Man. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, after an entire day's worth of work, after cutting the arms, putting in the joints, modifying everything to where he could bend and move, he sat on my table for about 30 minutes, give or take, while I just sat there and looked at it, trying to figure out what more I could do to it. So, I had the audacity to turn him into Cyborg Spider-Man. I took some red cloth and blue cloth and wrapped his legs and right arm in two different color fabrics, and the color match is actually pretty spot on. Actually, the red was a little bit too light, so I went ahead and painted the entire thing to match the same, to try to color match as best I could between the red plastic and the fabric. From a distance, you can't really tell the two apart, but then once you get up close, you're like, okay, this part's fabric, this part's not. So, great. He was seamless-ish. And then I forgot that the fabric that I use is not stretchy, so the second I bent his leg, it ripped. As you can tell, it's not horrible because I literally caked up a shit ton of like peach colored paint and red, and then filled it as best I could into the joint so he can still move his leg, but then if he bends it, or if I bend it, you can see like blood, or it would be blood and skin, like he's got a wound there. And then I wrapped a rubber band around that to make it look like a bandage, so he had like a battle damaged leg. Same thing on his wrist, on this side. I had put the joint up here beforehand, and I had already wrapped everything up. But then I'm like, you know what? I want there to be something else. So I pulled the rubber bands down, glued the fabric in place, painted over the fabric, and then pulled the rubber bands back up as best I could. And now it looks like he's got bandages on his right forearm. And then I just did a black wash over all of that to make them look dirty. It obviously doesn't look 100% flawless. It could obviously be better, but screw it. And then his other side was caked up with epoxy putty, because for those of you who don't know what epoxy putty is, it's one of the best things you can use for sculpting stuff like this if you're an amateur like me, or at least it's what I use, because you can put it on there. It's a two-part mixture. You mix everything together. It gets really warm, but then when it dries, it's rock solid. Unless, of course, it gets very, very thin. We'll get to that in a little bit. So I sculpted out as best as I could his robotic arm and forearm. These two pieces actually do still separate. And then I did rubber bands for his rings, or whatever you want to call them, on his forearm. And I left the robotic arm exposed, or the joint over here exposed, just because, it's a robotic arm. You're not going to be wearing a sleeve on a robotic arm if you're Cyborg Spider-Man. And then I obviously put regular 1/6 scale ball joint or wrist peg or whatever in the forearm, and so that way he can have interchangeable hands on both sides. Because beforehand, this was just a like Spider-Man style gripping hand. Drove me crazy. I cut it off and replaced it with a regular 1/6 scale wrist peg. And now he has 4 interchangeable hands for his right side and 3 interchangeable hands for his left. And then I tried to do the yellow belt, the yellow portion of the belt, just like everything else that's supposed to look like bands. They're rubber bands or belts, or rubber bands to look like belts, and or bandages. Let's see. The silver sections up here, they're not actual functional things. They're just meant to look like staples. Same thing on the legs up here. I tried to get it to where like the seams on the pants where I glued everything together to try to make it look like they were actually holding the suit together, but they're obviously not. And then the parts that actually ripped pretty decently, I just filled it with the same like fleshy style paint that I had, so that way any bare blue plastic that was poking out underneath it looked more like human skin rather than it being, you know, blue. So, and then unfortunately, my one of our oh so wonderful dogs decided to knock him off my work table while I was working on this guy. So he took a shelf dive, essentially, and it ripped the fabric clean in half on his other joint, which means that now he no longer has the nice seamless look of his right leg. But that is okay. And yes, he does have a shit ton of stuff caked up onto his feet, because otherwise he was a sliding nightmare. Now he still slides around, but he's not toppling over like he was a couple days ago. This was already here beforehand. I don't know what the hell it's for. It was there on the original figure. I just simply used it as the access point for the LED that I put into his head. So if I actually take his head off, there's a hole onto the ball joint for his neck. And that goes all the way, since the body is hollow, I was able to actually feed the wire through that now new hole. And then I just simply cut a hole in the recess part inside this already pre-existing box. Fed the wires out, or got the wires down, took some tweezers, went inside, grabbed it, pulled them out, wired everything to a USB cable. So now he actually can be turned on permanently in my display case. So that way he looks like he's, you know, alive and not just standing there looking stupid. Let's see, what else did I do? He did have a shoulder armor. But as I was doing the black wash on the silver that I had done for the robotic arm, the epoxy putty, since it got super duper thin over here, it cracked and eventually snapped off. Normally that doesn't actually happen, but when you have a dog knock this guy off and he takes a shelf dive and it lands right on that shoulder, then yeah, it's gonna happen. Let's see. Oh, his human hands actually have red paint applications to make it look as close as I can get it to. Obviously, it's not going to focus on camera, but his hands are supposed to look like they do have dried blood on them as well. The knuckles looks like he's been pummeling somebody pretty hard, actually, on all of his non-gloved hands. Same thing with the trigger finger hand as well. You can see right there that they are slightly pink around his knuckles, like he was beating the holy moly out of somebody, and the dried blood is on his skin. He does also have 2 Spider-Man hands. These were extra from the Thunder Toys Spider-Man, so thank you for letting me borrow your pieces there, dude. But obviously he's got a web flipping hand and a closed fist for his right arm. And then, believe it or not, the wrist peg that I'm using for his right arm is actually from Zombie Deadpool. It is one of his extra wrist pegs. Now, I know what you're thinking. They all come with 2 extra wrist pegs. I was trying to do that for the left side, but I had already used one of Boba Fett's extra wrist pegs, and it was when I did the attachment method for it, it actually got stuck in there. So it can still rotate, but I can't pull it out, if that makes sense. I can pull the hand off, but I can't pull the joint out, or the peg out. So I just left it alone, and his arms still sit at the right length, so it's not like one arm is longer than the other. They're the exact same length as they're supposed to be. Let's see what else. Oh, and then I wanted to use this on Boba Fett, but right now I currently have him burning Gary the Stormtrooper's butt, so he kind of can't use this because he only has one trigger finger hand. So I gave it to Spider-Man. Futuristic Spider-Man, futuristic blaster. It works for me. So, let's see what else. Now, like I said before, Cyborg Spider-Man is not perfect by any stretch of the word. He is literally just a ragtag thrown together, try to make a cheap, what should have been a dollar store toy turned into something that's somewhat usable or displayable. Now, don't get me wrong, I do have both Deadpools that I had. I have the one that I did not customize at all, and the one that I recently customized, both in the exact same case. So technically, I have one that really shouldn't be displayed in there, but it is displayed in there in the case. And then I also have my oh so wonderful 12-inch Venom, which was made by the same company that made this Spider-Man originally. But I have a completely different video on him. So, anyway, but he also arguably looks way better than this guy ever did, both now and before. So, that's saying something. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. So, yeah, this Spider-Man has been through a lot, as Spider-Men are supposed to be. He originally started off as a cheap store dollar whatever toy. He was very cheap and could not move at all, really, and could not do any sort of Spider-Man gestures or poses or anything like that. But with a little bit of Lego pieces and some epoxy putty and a whole bunch of extra time and effort, he is actually posable and can pull off some poses, mostly just standing at a weird, funky angle. And I unfortunately switched up the joints on here. So, like, for instance, his robotic arm can actually swivel at the bicep, versus this one was accidentally placed upside down. So which means he still has swivel, but it's at his forearm, not his bicep. So he can't actually bend. I can't actually bend his arm like that. I can only I can only rotate his forearm section, which does nothing. Same thing with the joint over here. I believe the swivel's up here, or no, the swivel's down here, but the regular peg is up here. Versus this one, it's the pivot's up here. So these two actually got switched when they should be like this one. But you know what? He's just going to be standing around in my display case until eventually I get Cyborg Spider-Man, and then he'll probably come back in here and be the Cyborg Spider-Man and representation of that in here versus my display case in my living room. So, but yeah, no, Cyborg Spider-Man is not perfect by any stretch of the word, but in my personal opinion, he is definitely better than he was when I first bought him originally, and he's definitely better than when I customized him originally when I did my 12-inch rehaul, whatever you want to call it, thing. because that was atrocious. All it was just the exact same thing with black Sharpie on the web for the web lines. So atrocious. But this is fine. Not great, not perfect, but fine. So, let me know what you guys think of Cyborg Spider-Man. I would put him on the rotating turntable, but I wouldn't be able to have his LED light on, and I can't actually unplug it from his back because it is permanently fused to his back. But that is okay because, like I said, he's not going to really be doing a whole lot of moving in my display case. I'm literally going to finish this video, make a short about the exact same video, and then throw him into the cabinet, and he's just going to stay there forever and a day. So, yeah. Oh, real quick, same, like I said earlier, all of the straps for his look are all just rubber bands. So, if this is something that you guys want to attempt, knock yourself out. It's very easy to do. You just have to have a little bit of time and a little bit of patience. Actually, a lot of patience, but mostly just time. This is not something that I'm ever going to say is one of my best customs ever. I would actually say that this is still probably one of my worst customs ever, just simply because it's not... it's not accurate to the Hot Toys version, which is accurate to the comic book version. It's my own interpretation of Cyborg Spider-Man. And two, the fabric was a choice, but I tried to make it feel like at least a third party style 1/6 scale figure. And at least with his variety of hands, it kind of does that. But I tried going seamless. That did not work. I tried having interchangeable hands. For the most part, that worked. But I still broke 2 different wrist pegs trying to do that. And the LED light-up effect was originally a coin cell battery on his back, but I wanted to have him lit up permanently in my display case so that way he looked alive. So that was a trial and error. I actually went through 3 LEDs trying to get it to where it is now, and that was a whole can of worms. So a lot of time did go into this. Do I regret it? No, I don't regret it. Could it have been better? Absolutely. I could have cut off the arms, cut off the legs, and, cut the torso in half and made a completely fully posable Spider-Man and whatnot. I could have gone online and found like maybe a cheap, quick spandex style Spider-Man suit and put the whole thing in a costume if I wanted to. But no, I used what I had. I did the best I could. He's got 6 interchangeable he's got 5 interchangeable hands for his right side and 3 interchangeable hands for his left. Now, like I said, could it have been better? Could it have been worse? It could have been worse. It was already worse. It was as worse as it could get. Or as bad as it could get. But obviously, he definitely could have been better. But like I said, am I happy with this figure? Yeah, I'm happy with the way it is now. Like I said, it definitely could have been better. But for me trying to be as adventurous as I was with this guy, I'm okay with it. Eventually, I could always try to take the rubber bands off and redo the pants at least with a more stretchy material so that way he could actually maybe pose a little bit better. But for now, this is fine. And honestly, I would rather him be able to do some form of posing rather than just standing straight up and down looking stupid. So, but I mean, you're seeing him right now. Yes, he's mostly standing straight up and down, but that's just because of the crappy fabric that I used for it originally and the way how it's all being glued together and trying to form everything. It's not great fabric by any stretch of the word. But even if that stuff wasn't there, he still had minimum articulation because I accidentally screwed up the joints in the left leg and the right arm because I put the joints in backwards. So, even if those pieces, even if the fabric was good, the joints are still backwards on 2 of them. So it was never going to be perfect. And I knew that from the start. But it was just one of those things that I just simply wanted to have fun with it. See how well it would go. See how horrible it would go. So, but if this is something that you guys are interested in doing, it's very easy to do. You just simply have to have the time, the patience, and the ideal vision to fulfill it. But anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this little mini series. But like I said, this was never going to be perfect. I knew that from the start. But I still had fun making this guy. This guy was so much fun to do, even if he did turn out terribly or things went horribly wrong. Because when I first did the fabric for his pants, it actually did look good. The fabric was nice and clean. Everything was, nice and seamless. It looked really good. It kind of looked just like that around his crotch area and this hip. And then I tried to bend the fabric for the first time. And then his butt ripped. The knee ripped. That part completely ripped. And yeah. So it stayed seamless for a little bit. And then I forgot that this fabric doesn't stretch all that well. So yeah. But this side looks nice-ish. This side is still nice and seamless-ish. Ignore the fact that there's a huge seam on the front of it and a huge gaping hole on the back of it. But just like everything else that has a hole through it, I filled it as best I could with the peach colored paint, so that way it looked like it was just his natural elbow. Ignore the wrist peg though. We'll just say that that's blue from his suit. That just happens to be lighter in color or lighter in tone. So but anyway, let me know what you guys think of Cyborg Spider-Man. Do you guys like this custom? Do you hate it? I'm sure it's going to be a very fun hate fest and stuff in the comments. But hey, I'm okay with it. Even I don't like this thing all that much. But do I like it better than it was before? Yes. Could it have been better? Like I said, of course it could have been better. I could have cut off the arms, cut off the legs, and 3D printed a whole bunch of pieces for this guy. But I decided not to do that. I just decided to work with what I had to work with and have fun with it and trying to figure it out. So, anyway, I hope this video inspires you to do something similar to it, or do something similar. Like I said, this is not very hard to do. Anybody can do it. You just have to have a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, and see what happens. So, but anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys all next time. Bye.